What's good, YouTube? Dom, Staven Sports Cards here. Wanted to welcome you to the channel. This is something I've been contemplating starting for over a year now. Been following this great community on YouTube for many years as a watcher. And I'm happy to finally take the leap into some content creating and getting more involved in this community. A little background on myself collecting. I'm 22 years old now. When I first started collecting, I was 10, 11 years old. As big as the hobby boom has been the past few years, when I was growing up in Connecticut, there was not a ton of peers that were interested in sports cards. I have tons of friends that I can talk sports with on a daily, weekly basis, but none of them are interested in cards. So it's really been something that I dragged my dad along to flea markets, tag sales, card shops, and eventually card shows. Card shows really changed my collecting vision to what it is today. I was 13 when I went to my first card show. And as a lot of you know, in the Northeast, there's a ton of great vintage dealers. I was around the best and largest amount of vintage in my entire life. Just seeing the history behind these cards, the smell of the cards, the artwork, the cartoons on the back, I was hooked from a young age. It was nothing like the cards that I was buying singles of and opening packs. I just became a sponge at those shows. I'd save up my money, and every 2 or 3 months, I'd go to a card show. I'd talk the dealer's ear off, asking questions about sets I'd never seen before, players I'd never heard of or loosely heard of in the past. I was just soaking up all this knowledge of the history of the game, these great players and great cards that were created to commemorate and celebrate these players. My whole collection focus just shifted. I do collect modern cards, mainly guys who play for my Boston Red Sox or players that I think are building up a Hall of Fame resume. Typically are the ones that I like to collect the most, modern-wise. But the vast majority of my collection is vintage Hall of Famers. I could only scratch that itch every couple months, though, when I had the money to go to a card show. So I eventually turned to YouTube. At first, I was just watching biographies, highlight tapes, interviews, and just hearing these great players, watching these great players, learning about the game. I eventually started searching for baseball cards. Started watching channels that are now some of the biggest legends in our community. Nate, Tops 85401, and his Baseball Card Junkie channel were very helpful to me. Ray from Philly, Mike Baseball Collector, guys that collect a lot of the same stuff that I like and have influenced my collection. So many great other YouTubers that I've watched over the years, but those are probably the three that I've watched the most of. And because of you great collectors in this community that you guys built, it helped educate me, make me a better buyer, and my collection has been able to grow in a stronger way because of that. So I just wanted to thank all of you that make content in this great community. I've learned about new cards or different players or different short prints, different sets from all of you guys, and it has influenced my collection and made me a better buyer and a better hobbyist. Thank you guys. I've been watching. I used to comment occasionally. My was Laser Show 15 for Dustin Pedroia for many years. I eventually switched to Staven Sports Cards with the idea that I would eventually make content and join this community. What really pushed me is a couple videos over the last few months. Aaron Davis was on a live with Nate, Tops 85401, talking about a young collector who didn't want to make content because he didn't have any graded cards. And they showed a bunch of awesome raw cards, some that looked pack fresh, and some like this that has tons of issues, but is a beautiful example of a Hall of Famer. And that really showed that this hobby doesn't just care about the cards or the main friends that they have in the hobby. They care about every single person, young and old, who is enjoying this hobby and wants everyone to get on this platform and share it. That really stuck with me and started making me think that I could also make card videos as well. I'd say probably only about 10% of my collection is graded. The vast majority of it is raw. And I love raw cards. I don't have to pay the exact money that a slab is comping for. I can negotiate based on the condition of the card and get great deals and examples for my collection. Another thing is Mike Baseball Collector has a great vintage podcast, Golden Age of Cardboard. Been listening to it since the beginning almost. If you love vintage baseball cards, it's a must listen. It's something that I listen to when I'm sorting through cards. It's amazing to just hear from all these great collectors that he has on, and all the different topics that he chooses are really make these 50, 100-year-old cards feel fresh. He was talking to Eric Those Back Pages, another legend in the community, about how much the relationships and getting involved in this community has grown their love for the hobby and changed their lives, really. Not keeping these cards in a dark hole anymore, sharing them, sharing your knowledge, as Eric likes to say, getting involved, meeting new people, sharing something that we love with each other. Because I've been living vicariously through all your guys' pickups, stories, videos, podcasts. But I'm sitting here in Connecticut with not many people to really share my love for the hobby with. So that really stuck with me. Then finally, another great YouTuber, my friend Brian Roth, BRoth6. He had a great pickup from Golden Auctions. If you haven't seen his video on that, tons of great stuff. He had a lot of awesome stuff, but I noticed his 1971 Topps Greatest Moments, because those aren't super common cards for the 70s. And I asked him about them, and he wasn't quite sure about them. I was able to tell him that they're a short printed test issue that was released in New York, and he thanked me for sharing my knowledge. Now, Brian is an amazing collector, super knowledgeable. As a dealer, he sees all kinds of sets, all kinds of cards. And the fact that I was able to help him out and share my knowledge and teach him something about cards when he works with cards on a much wider basis than I do really showed me that the amount that I've learned in this hobby over the years, and that I finally have enough knowledge stuck in this head that I can help out other collectors, get involved, and maybe when a young kid like me stumbles upon this great card community, I can be one of the channels that helps them some way in their collecting, whether it's showing them a new set they never heard of, a player that they didn't appreciate or know about, something to just get those creative juices flowing in the hobby. There's been so many videos that have influenced me to go look at a certain set or pick up cards from a certain set. Collecting vintage Hall of Famers. I like to collect autos and relics of Hall of Famers. There's a great Lou Brock from Upper Deck Legendary Signatures. Me and him share a birthday. I love oddball, oversized vintage as well. I think there's a great market for oversized cards because you have to buy different holders for them. They're harder to store. But they usually don't have as many condition issues despite them being big. Like this amazing 1952 Star Cal Decals Yogi Berra. It actually says on the back of that to display it on your trash can. Great oversized stuff like that it just really brings me joy that there's so many things in this vintage hobby to collect, despite most of these cards not being printed in 50 to 100 years. There's still different sets that I learned about every week, different players that I learn about and read about. It's just an amazing hobby that never really ends. And I think that taking this next step into content creation will really be great for me and my love of the hobby, as well as all you great collectors that I can't wait to talk to and interact with. Last card I wanted to show, I had to show this in my first video. As a Red Sox fan, getting into vintage growing up, couldn't afford Ted Williams at first. I got this at a later date. Carl Michael Yastrzemski, who I've had the honor to meet in person. His 1960 Topps Star Rookie. It's my favorite card in my collection. PSA 4, not super high grade, but I've learned from a lot of your channels about what to look for in cards and to buy good eye appeal for the grade. This card doesn't have the print line issue at the bottom that happens a lot. It's centered very well. The color's good on this card. And it's my number one casket card. If I had to sell everything in the collection, this would be the last thing I hold on to. He's an amazing player, an amazing Red Sox. 23 years with one team. Triple Crown winner. God bless him. He's 82, turning 83 this year. Being able to amass this kind of collection over the years has been amazing. I've learned so much from this great community, and I can't wait to add to this community. Please leave a comment below about what UPC, about channels that I may not have watched, because I always love to watch card videos in my free time. And I hope to meet as many of you as possible at my first national this year in Atlantic City. It's going to be awesome. Love the hobby, guys. Thank you for making it this far if you did. Have a good one. Peace.